Welcome to the Addison Northwest School District Annual Meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order at 6:07. The first article of business is to elect the following officers. One is a moderator. I'll now entertain a motion for nominations for a moderator.
Make a motion to nominate Dave Tatlock.
Any other nominations?
We can't hear, so.
This mic actually is only picking up for the TV, so we're looking for moderations for a moderator. Right now, we have Dave Tatlock nominated.
Sarah, do you need a second?
We do not need a second. I'm just looking for any other nominations. Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, I move to have the clerk cast one ballot for Dave Tatlock. All in favor of approving Dave Tatlock as the moderator for tonight's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Dave, you're up.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
That's the most I've heard my name said. Okay, good evening. Article 1, let's complete action on Article 1, which is to elect the following officers. 1B would be clerk. Do I hear nominations for the office of clerk?
Nominate Martha Canfield.
Martha Canfield. Any other nominations for clerk? Hearing none, all in favor of Martha Canfield as clerk, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Martha is the clerk.
Thank you, Martha. Thanks, Martha.
And Article 1C to elect a treasurer. Nominations for treasurer.
Nominate Greg Burdick.
There we go.
Greg Burdick. Any other nominations? And all in favor of Greg Burdick as treasurer, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Okay. Moving on to Article 2. Well, before we do Article 2, I just want to explain what's going to happen. This meeting is a little bit different than prior year meeting in that there is a public information meeting embedded in this meeting. So what we're going to do is Article 1 through 5, and then Article 6 will be a recess to the public information meeting, which will be run by the board. So just so everybody knows what's happening. So moving on to Article 2. Article 2 is to authorize stipends to be paid district officers, including the director, clerk, and treasurer. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved? Sorry.
Second,
Second? Moved and seconded?
Lori Childers.
Okay. Any discussion on Article 2? Yes.
Since I was the mover, I have the pleasure of asking the first question. What are they?
Yeah.
Good question. Does anybody have those amounts?
Page 75, minutes from last year. Article 7. Board of Directors, $850 each. Treasurer, $3,000. Sheriff Board of Directors, $1,275. Clerk, $150.
Can you repeat that so that we can hear it?
Yes, the board of directors, $850 each. The treasurer, $3,000. The chair of the board of directors, $1,275. And the clerk, $150. And I would just point out the article, as it states, is just to pay the district officers. And if anybody wanted to amend that, to be more specific, that would be appropriate, or not. You can pass it as is.
One more question.
Yes.
The moderator is, according to this, is an officer. How come the moderator doesn't?
The moderator's pay is zero. But thank you for clarifying that. It's not the only job I do that the pay is zero. Any other discussion on the article? Okay, the article has been moved and seconded. Are you ready for the question? To authorize stipends to be paid district officers, including the director's clerk and treasurer. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to Article 3, to authorize the Board of Directors under 16 VSA 562-9 to borrow money by issuance of bonds or notes not in excess of anticipated revenue for the school year.
So moved.
Moved by Jeff,
Second.
second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of Article 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Article 4, to authorize the Board of Directors to electronically distribute the annual report. Entertain a motion, Mary?
Second, Lori Childers.
Moved by Mary, seconded by Lori. Any discussion?
Is that electronically only? Or will there still be copies at your town clerk's office?
Good question.
There are copies available at the town.
So we're not voting to just be electronic.
Right.
Good question. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of Article 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Article 5, to elect a community representative to serve on the Patricia A. Hannaford Regional Technical School District Board of Directors for a term of 3 years. Do I have a motion?
Is that a nomination?
Or is this a nomination?
Yeah, I think that,
Well, the article is to elect a community representative, so I guess we need a,
so, I nominate Christina if she's still, this
She's
is
the
something
board
else.
rep. This is the at-large rep.
Ah, Mike McGrath was,
Right.
yeah. Does anybody know
well,
Mike?
let's have a motion on the article so then we can discuss it. So,
So moved, Lori
all
Childers.
right, Lori's moving. Second?
Second, Mark Haney.
Mark, second. Discussion of the article, I guess.
Do we presently have someone on the board?
It's Mike McGrath.
Mike McGrath is Ben. Has he been participating, Christina?
Yes.
Yeah, he shows up. When I talked to him years ago, he was interested. But I don't think anybody's
I
talked to him
assume he's not
directly,
here
so-
tonight?
yeah. But he's showing up, so, and participating.
I'll nominate Mike McGrath.
It's possible he was not aware that he was up for
We,
re-election.
For re-election.
we have a nomination on the floor then for Mike McGrath to be elected for a 3-year term as a community representative to serve on the Patricia Hannaford Regional Technical School District Board of Directors. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, someone should tell him. So finally, Article 6, and what we're going to do, because this is a public information hearing scheduled after this official meeting, but this official meeting will actually continue on Tuesday, March 3rd, Town Meeting Day by Australian ballot, at the times indicated in the warning at the various towns to consider Article 7 and Article 8. We will, I'll call for a motion to recess this meeting for the informational meeting to follow. Can I get a motion on that?
Point of order.
Yes.
The Article 6 is within the town, but within the school district annual meeting and should stay there. That's the way it was warned. We should leave it in there. We'll have our discussion controlled by the moderator.
That's a point of order. Okay.
Well, the point of order is that it's in, Article 6 is in the warning as part of the warning, part of the annual meeting.
I agree.
The meeting can't end before we finish Article 6.
I don't want to end.
Okay.
Right.
Then I will accept that point of order. We'll continue the meeting, the formal meeting, until the end of the public information meeting. And I will remain as moderator, but I will turn over the administration of the public information meeting to those who have prepared presentations, unless there are objections.
It's, there are objections.
Okay.
It's proper to address the moderator in all cases within the meeting. So if someone has a question, it's to Mr. Moderator. May I interrogate the, or may I interrogate the superintendent, or, and may I speak to the motion? It's always controlled by the moderator. It always goes through the moderator. Colonel Roberts would be pleased if you would do that.
Understood. And I'm happy to do it that way. That was not the way the meeting was planned, but I'm okay with that. So, Bill.
Question from a member of the public, not in my capacity as a board member.
Certainly.
I think it's my opinion that it's appropriate to continue with Article 6, that it would actually probably not be appropriate not to have Article 6 be a part of this public meeting, so I agree with that. I do think that we're out of order right now, because if there's a formal challenge to the moderator, then it should be stated as such, and then we can discuss the challenge to the moderator. But Dave, if you're not taking that as a challenge, then if there are no objections, I'd like to give my opinion on it.
Please.
So I think with Article 6, if the moderator continues to run the meeting, the moderator, it is appropriate, as is done in town meetings all over the state, for the moderator to state that if there are no objections, we will hear a report from just as we do for the select board during a town meeting. I think it's also appropriate for the moderator to moderate the question and answer session. I was originally going to do that as a member of the school board, but Dave is just as capable, and I think it would be appropriate given that we keep this in here. I'd also just like to state that we have an obligation as a school board to do an informational presentation, and I'm hoping that nobody would object that we're meeting both requirements by doing that here once, rather than after Article 6 is over, repeating everything a second time for the public to meet the obligation the board has as well. So if I see you're nodding your head, so I think that we're doing okay.
That's entirely appropriate, in my
Right.
opinion only.
Well, then my decision on the matter will be that I will continue as the moderator for the meeting, and I would like to have the board do a informational presentation to the public, after which there will be question and answer period, which I will moderate. And so I am turning it over to
John.
me. To John. Yeah. Excuse me. He threw us off. One thing I have to scratch out.
I'm okay. I guess I will take it, yeah. All right, let's do this while this is warming up. Would you turn to page 2, the second page? I was going to read these anyway. Page 2. It's a place to start for us all. A reminder about the school district and what we're about. So when we began as a unified board, we did a lot of work to come up with the vision that we wanted to have for this school district. And a good place for us to start is to read that vision. And so since I'm standing here with this microphone, I'll read it. This is our vision statement that was adopted in 2017. We envision a kind, collaborative, and creative community for all that nurtures a diverse and accessible learning environment. Students will flourish as critical thinkers and productive citizens, cultivating resilience in an ever-changing world. Later on, we adopted the Safe Schools Statement, and I'll ask you, I won't read that now, but I will ask you, as it is a really important statement about what goes on in our schools, to please read that. My name is John Stroup, and I am a board member, and I represent the city of Virgins. I'm here to welcome you. Welcome. Welcome. Okay, all right. I'm also here to tell you a little bit about the agenda. The agenda is not just that we get to decide what we want to present here. State law and our policies require us to give a presentation that is outlined in the slides that you will see here. So when you're saying, like, why didn't they present on this or why didn't they present on that, it's directed to us in some ways that we were required to give this presentation. The reason why we are going to give that agenda and then take some questions and answers is that this presentation is to help us all better understand the budget and how it reflects the district's goals, for improving student learning as outlined in our vision, in which we're responsible to this community's needs. The community needs a system of education, and that vision for that education is written on page 2, which was where I was going to go before the slide came up. So I get the honor of talking about some of our district accomplishments. Some of those accomplishments, they can be found throughout the annual report. I'll ask you to take a look. On the left-hand side, the bullet to the left, the development and implementation of the district's continuous improvement plan. This is we are required by the education quality standards to meet these goals. And this district has done so. The bullets on the left-hand side are requirements that goals for the district that the school board and the superintendent jointly created. Some development of a new leadership structure in the schools, continued implementation of personalized learning, and an improved system of data reporting to analyze and improve student outcomes. I'll ask you to take a moment and look at page 15, please. Page 15 and 19. If you wanted to find those old annual reports either on the website or in your, on your bookshelf, I think that you'll look back and you'll be able to see that our way of gathering data is better than it has ever been. We have essentially been down a person in the curriculum and learning office, and there's just an enormous amount of information for us to be able to take a look at here. So I invite you to read those, page 15 through 19, please, to see all of the district accomplishments. Also, while you're staring at that annual report, stop for a moment at each one of the schools and take a look at the points of pride for each one of those schools. Those are the district accomplishments, the ones that happen for each of our children and for our staff and administrators. Okay, the budget objectives. I'll say these words. The budget objectives are to do 3 things: to provide equitable opportunities for all of our students, to provide a rich opportunity of programs for all of our kids, and to be affordable. Those are our 3 budget objectives. So, as you know, we have limited resources that that become much more important as we have seen declining enrollment in our schools. We're trying to, this budget consolidates some elementary schools and maximizes our class sizes. We have expanded alternative education for the students who are currently being educated off-site in a non-school building. We maintain all of the programs currently offered, all of the programs, and we continue to make a commitment to high-quality staffing. And some people might say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that in this budget, there's budgetary amounts for professional development, for in-service trainings, for salaries that are in line with our region, so that we can have competitive compensation packages to keep and retain our teachers and our staff. No, I'm out.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Borchert. I'm the school board member and the representative from Waltham. John was telling us the positive things that we were doing, and I'm the less positive person here. I'm the bearer of bad news, as it were. So, as we're dealing with changes in our district and in our state, there are a number of economic drivers that we are facing in our budget. Now, the biggest, and they're listed here. The biggest single, the biggest single driver to our budgetary decisions is that this year we've had a decrease in equalized pupils of 10.91. how many of you know what an equalized pupil is? Okay, so very roughly, the number of equalized pupils that we have is not the same number of pupils that we have. Our revenue from the state is determined by the number of equalized pupils that we have. And the number of equalized pupils is a very complicated formula that the state has that is determined by a number of different things, including the state's determined that it is cheaper to educate elementary school students than it is to educate high school students. It's also determined that students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch require more resources from the state, and students who are ESL learners, English as a second language learners, also require greater resources from the state. So the numbers of students that are declining are not the same number of equalized pupils that are declining, if that makes sense. So the important thing here, though, is that in the budget that we've put forward, the number of equalized pupils has declined by almost 11. What that means is that the revenue that we get from the state has decreased, as you can see here, by 18.44%, which is a pretty significant decline in revenue that we're getting from the state. In addition to this, there are a number of places where our fixed costs are going up, or our uncontrollable costs are going up, as it were. One, the Hannaford Career Center's budget for this year has almost a 23.5% increase. We expected them to have an increase, but I think I think it was about $104,000 more than we were expecting. Two, there's been a almost 14% increase to the cost of the employee health insurance premiums, which is out of our control because this has been determined by the state. But the state is engaged in negotiating the teachers' health insurance contract statewide, and as a result of the statewide negotiations, the HRA plans have changed, and we are now paying first dollar, which was something we hadn't been doing. In other words, we're paying the deductibles, and this has also meant that our costs have gone up by about $93,000 than we knew was going to be the case in, say, January 1. Down the pike, there are also changes to special ed funding and reimbursement, which are driving our decisions that they're not coming into effect, or at least not all of them are coming into effect this year, but in the FY22 fiscal year. And then the third thing is that there are increases to the salaries in the district, which are currently being negotiated. So this put us into a significant, these changes, the decline in revenue and the increase in these costs over which we have no control, meant that we are proposing some significant changes to the way our school district is managed. In particular, as you know, we're planning to repurpose Addison so that it is housing a countywide alternative education program. Repurposing Addison in that way so that it is no longer an elementary school is allowing us to reduce staff by 7.5%, as well as 17% reduction in building-based administrations. In addition, there's an 8% reduction in the central office employees. Another thing that we are doing to try to reduce costs is that we're using fewer outside consultants for our counseling services. And then to throw this in, we've had to adjust our technology budget in order to become E911 compliant. We can go over what that means if you want later, but it's another cost. So these changes are not all bad. They've allowed us to preserve programs at the high school. They've also allowed us to increase health education at the elementary level to bring the schools into compliance. They've allowed us to increase the physical education at the middle school level, which is also bringing the district into compliance, something that we haven't been. And as I said a minute ago, it's providing the alternative education program that will be housed at Addison Central School will allow us to provide better services than the students who need these programs have been getting in-house. Currently, those students are having to go to Champlain, up to Chittenden County, and we have relatively little control over the programs there. They're going to be here in-house at roughly the same, as I understand, the same costs as what we are paying now for the same program in Chittenden County. In addition, there will be, as you may have seen, there's a separately voted article which is creating a health insurance reserve fund, which again we can talk about in the Q&A. So this chart here, I just kind of want to sum up a little bit and point out a few things about our budget as a whole. This chart here, this budget history, is actually on the bottom of 58 of your books, with the exception with the exception of, sorry, I'm stepping away from the mic, this last box, which is the 3-year average of our changes. As you can see here, we have been, as a whole, keeping our expenditures at minimal growth. Our 3-year average for our expenditures is only 1.17%. We've kept our costs as low as we reasonably can. At the same time, our revenue is decreasing as a result of the decline in population, in student population. And this is really the thing, these were really the things that were driving the proposed changes that I just described. It's worth noting that we are the only district in the state that is proposing a reduced budget. The average increase in budgets in the state is actually 4.4%. So there is a benefit there are many benefits to what we're doing. I think I'll stop there. And
Hi, everyone. Hi. My name is Sue Rakowski. I'm a board member from Virgins, and I'm...
Can't hear you back here at all.
All right, I will use my teacher voice. My name is Sue Rakowski, and I am a board member from Virgins. And I'm just going to walk you through a couple of these slides. This one is about our anticipated revenue sources. So this chart is on page 61 in your book. And essentially we have 4 different areas of revenue. The main one, which I can't actually see the number, but it looks to be about 80-something%. 83%, 86%, is the education spending, and that is coming from the state. That is where all of the property taxes, the residential property taxes, the non-residential property taxes, the sales tax, and all the other areas that the legislature designates to go into the ed funding. That makes up the blue. Actually, that makes up the blue and the green on here. It's not on 61? No. 60. Oh, I'm sorry, 60. No, not on 60. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The chart isn't here. The chart is actually not in here, but but all the numbers that relate to this chart are on page 61. Sorry. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So the numbers that are on page 61 are the proposed revenue numbers broken down by line items, and this is just a chart that puts them into 4 basic categories. Okay. So the blue is basically the taxes and the general state support grant. The green, which also comes from the taxes but is not determined by the per pupil cost, is the special state revenues. That's special education, early education, transportation, driver's ed, and a couple other miscellaneous items there. And then we have a tiny little bit of other revenue. This is where we have some earnings from tuition and services to other school districts, some interest earnings, facility rental, and some other small reimbursements. And then there's a tiny sliver that's orange that you can't really see there, which is actually negative 0.09. So that sliver is, in the past couple of years, we actually had some surplus from prior year that we allocated here to reduce taxes. But as we've budgeted better, we did not have a surplus. We actually, though, from the FY19 audit, we had a small $18,000 deficit, I believe, due to the food service, which is represented by that orange sliver. So, all right. So this is on page 67, for real, at the top, and this is the relationship between the budget and the amount of taxes to be raised. So all of these numbers here are actually numbers that we receive from the state. So the legislature sets the homestead yield, the income yield, the non-residential rate, the education spending threshold, and tells us our equalized pupil count, as Tom just spoke about. So the takeaway from here is that the only things that we locally here can control is that total local education spending. So the total budget amount minus the local revenues, and that brings us to that 18,855,728. So all of those numbers that come from the state actually walk through a calculation to determine what the property tax rate will be. And that calculation is walked through for you on page 67 of the book. So you have the expenditure budget of $21,842,594 minus the local revenue plus that $18,000 deficit equals the balance to be funded with ed spending, which is that $18,855. Then we get the state numbers in here, and I want to make a note too that all these state numbers are still subject to change. Last year, we got an update on our equalized pupil number in May, and the income yield and the homestead yield and the spending threshold are typically discussed and set by the legislature in April. So we can walk through this formula, this formula here, but know that when it comes down to it, these numbers are estimates. So what you do is you take the total ed spending, $18,855, you divide that by the equalized pupils, and that gives you the cost per equalized pupil. And then you take that, you divide that by the threshold. Let's see, right? You divide that by the threshold. Or no, you're right, subtract. And then you have the amount that we're above or below the threshold. When it's $999.80 above, but then you have exclusions that actually count against that, so we don't get the penalty because based on the amount of debt that the district holds. Then you divide that number by that property yield. That gives you 1.81. We have a 4-cent incentive because we're in the 4th year of consolidation. Next year we'll have 2 cents, and then we'll have no more incentive there. So 181 minus the 4 cents is 177. Right? And then you actually, wait, then what do you do? I just lost myself here. Which brings us to the actual unionized tax rate of 173.75. I'm sorry, 177.53, which is 0.378 higher than the last year's. So, if that made any sense at all, that it's a little confusing. But basically, we're looking at the union tax rate of 177, which is about 4 cents higher than the current year. That's the union tax rate, and then each town has a common level of appraisal that's dependent on the when the last time the houses were appraised. So it varies a little bit by town. So that's the best I can do on that. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Christina Macklin. I'm on the school board and represent Ferrisburg, and I am here to do the budget recap. Woohoo! So bear with me. I guess the first thing I want to start with is to kind of go back to the equalized pupil number, just to say this all out loud, because at the printing, we were at 954.44 equalized pupils, and after the printing happened, the state gave us a new number. So we are today at 948.52 equalized pupils, which means that we've had a decrease again of 16.83 equalized pupils, which isn't good. And like Sue pointed out, that number could very likely still change when the state sees fit to let us know. So starting with that. This budget that we're talking about tonight is a decrease over last year's budget by 1.34%. And that decrease is really because we've been able to incorporate items that through the repurpose of Addison Central School, which will allow us to more efficiently educate the elementary school students. Just so you kind of have another figure in your head, our 3-year average budget growth over the past 3 years has been 1.17%. And then, as I think it was Tom pointed out, somebody earlier, the average increase across the state for a school budget is 4.4%. So we are well under that. Our local revenue decrease, because of student numbers declining, that is impacting this budget. That decline is also related to the expenditures that we spend for special education, and we've gotten more efficient in that area. So that means because we've gotten more efficient, we're spending less, we actually get less revenue. So that's impacting a bit. And as Sue pointed out, we don't have a surplus this year. So using the numbers that the state gives us, our estimated tax rate increase for FY20 is 3.78 cents. So this is a 2.18% increase in the tax rate. This equates to approximately $37.80 per $100,000 home value for residents taxed solely based on their property value. And that is before the town estimates this, or the town's CLA is applied. And just to reiterate that these numbers could change as the state learns more on what all the other school districts are doing.
So is that based on 954 or 948?
So everything tonight has been based on the 954, right?
So that will raise the tax rate increase.
Yes, unfortunately.
Do you know that quickly?
I'm not the person to answer that, but can. Yeah, so,
Clarify when we go to
yes.
the question.
But my point was to just make you all aware of that. I don't know if you guys want me to read the Australian ballot, but Article 7. Shall the voters of the Addison Northwest School District approve the Board of School Directors to expend $21,842, I mean, 21 million, sorry, we wish, right? $21,842,594, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in projected education spending of $19,755.80 per equalized pupil. I apologize, these numbers. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 3.22% higher than the spending of the current year. Article 8. Shall the voters of the Addison Northwest School District vote to establish a health insurance reserve fund pursuant to the provisions of 24 VSA Section 2804 for the purpose of funding health insurance premiums, health reimbursement account costs, or health savings account costs, and authorize assignment of any unspent budget funds for such at the close of each fiscal year up to an amount not to exceed a cumulative balance of $200,000. Got that figure right. Woo. Okay. The website has a tremendous amount of documents, information, this presentation, the annual report. I mean, there's a multitude of information where you can spend a lot of time reading if you so choose. Or direct any questions to any of us after this presentation is over, or at any other time for that matter. And this is just kind of a wrap-up of where, if you have questions, where to go, which I just said, and everyone hopefully knows where they're voting, where to go in their towns, and the vote times run from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We encourage everyone to please vote. And thank you very much. This is the biggest audience for one of these meetings I've ever seen in like the last 15 years. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina, does this complete the board's formal presentation? Okay. So, are there any questions, comments from the group? What I'd like to do, just in preparation.
I'm very sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I've sat through 3 meetings, I cannot hear. Can you please turn that microphone up?
Yeah, I will speak louder, thank you. This microphone doesn't have any speakers in the room, so I can just speak up, and I will do that. We're going to have some public commentary now, and I want to ask everybody, please be considerate of others. Keep your comments as brief and to the point as possible. Free to ask whatever questions you'd like to ask. I'm sorry? And please state your name. And if you have extended comments, I'd ask you to come up to the front. There is a microphone, again, a magic microphone that does not have speakers in the room. We'll have to figure out how that works. But if you can stand and speak loudly. They do have to come up to the microphone. Okay, you've been requested to come up to the microphone for comments. If you have a short question, you could probably yell it out, though, and I won't. Oh, got it. But they're going to face away from the camera? Or is...
As long as we get their names.
Okay. Any public comment, questions? Yes. Come on up and have a seat. State your name. State your question.
I've got 100 questions, but can I just start with one? One of the presenters, my name is Tim Butsky, town of Addison. One of the presenters indicated that the tax rate would be at $1.77, or that's what it was as of tonight. And in the slide prior to that, it had a non-residential tax rate of what was that non-residential rate? And how do I become a non-resident? Thank you.
The question was, what was the non-residential tax rate? Do we have that? 1654. Does that answer your
So it's
question?
less than, yes,
Okay.
significantly less.
Yes.
Yes, George Eisenhart, from resident of Addison. Question about the state negotiations. Is that ongoing right now, or is it over as far as the insurance? It's over.
Through a mediator. Yeah, but is it over? Just
Question is the state insurance still under negotiation, or has it been settled?
It's absolutely settled.
It's absolutely settled,
absolutely
says Lori.
settled.
Settled for this year.
well,
They haven't signed off on the final paperwork, but the both sides,
Negotiations finished.
the employers and the employees met. They could not find an agreement. The way the state set up this process was, usually in a mediation, you come together, the mediator takes bits and pieces and creates a new thing. This, they had a nice carrot and stick. They said, you only get to pick one of the plans, mediator. So employers came, employees came, gave their best and final offer, and the mediator picked one of them. Could not change anything about it. They picked the employees, and it hasn't been finalized and signed, but as far as we know, all the numbers are set, and that's where we are. But we had no control over that, and that takes effect come next January 1st.
Do you have any input? None. So the negotiating team from the state just came up with this, and then you still have to come up with a reserve fund for it. That wasn't negotiated in either?
Well, the reserve fund is part of the budget. Anything we don't spend, we can try and put in there so that we cover. Right now, we're gonna have to, because we now pay first dollar for the HRAs, we need to budget for 100% usage, even though it's likely that we won't have 100% usage. We don't know that, so we have to pretend we will. Anything that we have left, let's say we only use 85% this year. We're asking that we move that 15% that we budgeted into the reserve fund so that we don't have to budget 100% in the future. We have a little slush fund in case the next year we go to 90, but we only budgeted 85. So that's not new money, that's just, if we have anything left over, we'd like to be able to put it aside rather than putting it back into the general fund to save us in future budget years.
So the state picked and chose what they did with the statewide negotiation.
It's not the state,
Salary-
it was two sides.
Well, there's two sides, obviously,
Right. The
but,
employers and the employees both created a negotiation.
but
We
my
were not
point,
part
my
of that
point
negotiation.
being, the salary wasn't one of them.
Salary is not part of that. Salary is a different negotiation.
Well, in the original Act 60, it was supposed to be.
Well, we still negotiate salary.
Yeah,
And
well, without the insurance, it makes it tough.
it does.
Loss of local control.
Thank you. Any next comment?
I was
Question?
thinking this one.
No, that.
Yes.
Lynn Donnelly from Virgins. I would like the number of the 948 amount, if that's possible tonight, before we vote. And you had a slide up there where the reduction in staff because of Addison, and you had it in percentages. Can you tell us what that is, an actual number?
Yes, the first question is it possible to get a calculation of the tax rate in consideration of the 948 equalized pupils as opposed to the 953?
if it stays at 948, if the threshold stays and the yields stay exactly as they are right now, it's 5.45 cents. But it's likely that the yield or the threshold may change as well. But given the numbers that we have right now, that's.
Would it be likely to go down? Is that what you're fearing?
Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. My hope, and what I've asked our legislators, is that the threshold go up.
Okay, can someone tell me what the actual numbers are from that slide?
The other question is there a full-time equivalent number for the staff reductions in Addison to go along with the percentage reductions that were given in the presentation?
Yes. 10 professional staff, 2.5 FTE support staff, 1 building-based administrator, and 1 central office position.
So when you say professional staff, is that pairs too, or?
No, the 2.5 is Paris, the 10 is licensed teachers, counselors, special educators, nurses.
And are they being moved to any other school? Or is
This
it?
is the number that is being reduced.
Okay, so that's a true reduction in staff.
Correct.
Okay, that's it.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
My name is William Ledoux. I live in Ferrisburg. I'm wondering if anybody could give a brief explanation of the alternative education change and what was the alternative education up to now and what is being offered in the new proposal.
The question is the alternative education that is being offered at Addison Central School next year. What is it now and what is it going to be after the change?
Could we ask this, the superintendent is not a resident, is it okay if she addresses the question?
Yes.
Do you mean qualitative, like the program itself, or are you speaking more specifically to the budget?
No, a description of the program.
Okay, so those students are currently being educated off-site.
You'd like to come up here, please? For our viewers at home. For our viewers at home.
Currently, those students are being educated in an outside placement that will no longer be reimbursable through changes in the special education funding. So if we were to keep students in where they're currently being educated, we would not receive a fair amount of revenue that we're currently receiving. So those are students who are not successful in the regular classroom and who need specialized instruction. So they're currently being educated in CSEC, which is the counseling service of Addison County, and so we are building a cooperative with the other 2 Addison County school districts by which we're going to house them in our district and build a program that we can then expand on so that we can bring some of the students that are coming from Chittenden County and other outside placements, which will be more cost effective for us going forward. And we're sharing the cost, the local cost, with the other 2 school districts. So it's a savings for us all the way around.
Just a follow-up, do you have an estimate of approximately how many students that will be serving?
It's right now about between 16 and 20 students that are outplaced. And as I said, as we grow that program, we can continue to bring more students back from other outside placements as it's appropriate to do so. So it's a program we can continue to build.
And another follow-up?
I don't.
Does that have anything to do with the reduction in the special education line of the budget?
It does, and Elizabeth would be the better person to speak to how the revenue and the special ed line up. I don't know if you want to address the revenue components of that at all. Yeah. Do you mind if I?
I don't mind. You may come up and speak. Thank you.
I'm Elizabeth Jennings. I'm the Director of Finance. So how the program saves money for the district is, first, you may have remembered one of the slides where it talked about reducing the amount of consultants and outside professional services that we need to utilize in order to educate some of the special education students. That's a reduction for us. So instead of having outside consultants who are basically facilitating this education, we are able to hire staff members, not just us, but these other 2 school districts also are sharing in the cost of hiring employees that can provide these services to students. So you're saving money there. The other thing that it does is instead of just paying out money to an organization like the counseling service, bringing those students in-house, we also are able to have the students from the other school districts come into our same program and therefore they will be sharing in the cost of that. It's a reduction all the way around. The other thing that it does is it also it reduces the expenditures overall, and someone else spoke to this, that unfortunately does also reduce our revenue, which sounds kind of crazy, but basically right now, the way the state of Vermont runs special education revenue is it's all based on what you spend. So there's a formula, and the more you spend, the more you receive in revenue. The state came and I don't know if it was new legislation or if it was just enforcement of old legislation, but they decided that this particular program and this outsource, if you weren't housing it in a school facility, you would no longer be reimbursed those dollars for it. So that means Mount Abraham would lose money, Middlebury High School would lose money, and our district would lose reimbursement money for that program. So it's not just the expenditure side, it's also that revenue side that now we're able to keep that revenue for all the 3 districts.
Is there already an agreement in place with the other school districts?
It's being worked on right now. It's not finalized. So they're drawing it up together. The 3 different school districts are working together to try to come up with an agreement. And of course, that'll be vetted by, lawyers and Department of Education. Everybody involved has to review that agreement before it's actually signed. It's not a signed contract right at this time.
Is there a contingency plan if they back out?
Well, that's part of the reason why we decided as a consortium with those other 2 school districts not to just hire all the staff ourselves for the program. Because if you can imagine, if we hire all the staff and we hold the building and we have all the supplies and all the things we need to provide these students with this program, and then the other 2 school districts were to back out, who's left holding the bag? We are, right? Because we still have contracts for those staff members and such. So we would be locked in to those costs even if we did not have the students attending our program. So that's not the way it's being designed. It's being designed where there's a cost sharing. So basically, we do have the building, we do provide the supplies and those things, but the staffing of it will be provided and split. So we will hire a few of the staff members, and each of them will hire a few of the staff members so that it's all shared and everybody has skin in the game, basically, before the program even starts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other questions? Anybody else that hasn't spoken yet? Yes, please, come up, Carol.
Just a point of order here.
Yes.
Can we, if it's okay, if it's a comment, could we go and sit down? But if it's a question to help this, could you just repeat the question and then it'll get on and you can repeat who said the question and we can deal without moving up here unless it's a comment.
And I had said that if you have a brief comment you want to shout out, fine. If you have remarks that you'd like to make, please come up because otherwise we don't get it recorded. So we need to have you come up. Carol.
Thanks.
Sorry, state your name. Sorry.
Carol Kaufman, Addison. And could I make a comment and then ask a question?
Yes.
So this is all about money. And I'm really not into percentages, but I do know the numbers. And before the union, combined education costs grew from 2012 to 2017, 1.3 million. When the union started, it has grown 2.3 from 17 to 20. And even with Addison being closed, the projection is that it's still going to grow another 2.6 million before to 2024. And so I hope that we can reassess everything and really look into dissolving the union and going back to local control so that our towns can be viable and we can be at a personal level and meet the needs of our community and still have the opportunity to grow. Chair Rakowski, so one of my concerns is that significant year-ending surpluses of the union have been depleted. So the end of 17, which was all of our combined budgets together, the surplus was over 600,000. FY18 ended in 450,000. And Chair Rakowski noted that FY19 ended in 99,000. And she concluded that the board is managing their money, better budgeting. But my question and challenge is that in the audit, Schedule 1, support services was overspent by $399,508. That would have been that would have carried on our surpluses. But because of that over expenditure, it brought us down to 99,000. And so I would like an explanation of that. And also, if the school board would share with us their anticipated fund balances for 2020, what they're looking for, because I've heard that it's going to be a deficit.
Thank you. Can I ask someone on the board to address the comments and questions?
Could the moderator summarize what the question was?
Yeah, boy, you put me on the spot here. A lot of the question, and Carol, help me out here if you can, but it revolves around the deficit. There are surplus balances in the budget in the prior couple of fiscal years that has been turned into or basically zeroed out to a small deficit in the current year. And some questions as to support services being overspent on the budget, possibly contributing to the use of those surpluses. And overall question on the increase in spending over the last several fiscal years, and both before and after the unification. And then there was something in there about proposing the dissolving of the unified district. And did I miss anything? Is that, I mean, am I?
Yeah, some of it was more of a statement, but I guess from the board, I'd like to hear, you know, the comment was that we're budgeting better, and yet one line item was overspent, $400,000. So an explanation of that. And then also, I heard that 2020 is going to be a deficit.
You're asking
year.
about fund balances and the budget.
I'll address my.
Okay. Could you come to the mic then, please?
So the fund, not the fund, the surpluses for the past 2 years have all gone back into the budget. All of that money has been credited against the next year's budget and against the taxes that we collected in the next year. So that's how they've been depleted. They've been given back to the budget for the following year. I'm not sure what 99, I said that there was an $18,000 deficit from fiscal year 19 audit. It was 18,900 and something. And yes, we are budgeting so that we break even. We don't want to be over budgeting or under budgeting, so $18,000 on a $22 million budget, I think means that we budgeted pretty well, in my opinion. So,
do you have a comment on the over expenditure of the 400,000 line item? I mean, one line item.
I don't, but if it's student support services, I would guess that it's students that needed additional supports that were not known at the time that the budget was made. But no, I can't really speak to that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that if we have one line item that was in a deficit of $400,000, that means that we have another line item that has given that $400,000. We didn't have, it isn't uncommon for one line item to receive a transfer from another line item, because we're budgeting 18 months before some of this, even longer in some times. By the way, I'm Lori Childers. And so it's not uncommon to move money, I mean, it's not money, but move stuff from one account, a budget line item, into another account because you have a need. But I think the thing to take away with all this is, yeah, we might have had a $400,000 line item deficit, but we only ended up with a net deficit of $18,000. So we had the money, and Elizabeth and the building principals and the superintendent, they're all looking for money in places where they can work it out for the students. And they had to move $400,000 into support services. They had to move $400,000 into support services. They had to take it from somewhere else. So
Depleting deficits don't concern you?
We have an $18,000 deficit. We're not, that doesn't concern me.
I know I used the wrong, but you guys have gone from a $650,000, I'm sorry, I mean surplus. Depleting the surpluses.
Yeah, we reduced taxes, but that's what we use the surplus for, is to reduce the next year's taxes. So it benefited the taxpayers. I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, I just look at other budgets, and they usually run before, and people have told me 200 to 400,000, and that's where the balance, the surplus balance at the end of the year, the goal that they set.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
who's they, and I don't know what you're saying, Carol.
Okay.
We have a deficit of $18,000 for the year. That's pretty good on $21 million.
The question is around deficits and surpluses year over year, and
Right.
the answer was there were surpluses in prior years that were used to reduce the amount of taxes collected in the subsequent year, and this year those have been rolled forward. There's no
Right.
more left to roll forward.
Right. Right.
You don't want to have a surplus. It's like your income tax. It's great to get the money back after April, but that meant that you gave the government $2,000 of your money to hold that they're not going to give back to you because you overpaid. Ideally, you want to be as close to zero on your taxes as possible. Similarly with the budget, you want to be as close to zero. That means that everybody paid the taxes that they should have paid, not that we took more money than we needed and then the next year gave it back. You want to have your money now. So the fact that we're out of $22 million, we hit within 18,000 is zero, statistically speaking. So we budgeted correctly. In past years, we were having a lot more guesswork and having to add to line items because we weren't positive of what was going to happen. We're much clearer now, and it's a much cleaner budget.
So thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks.
I want to give everybody a chance that would like to speak. Are there other questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to go back to Carol, what she's talking about, the money that's shuffled around.
Announce yourself, please, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Armstrong, West Addison.
Could you come up and sit up in the front, please?
You can hear. If you don't mind, I think I'll do the proper thing and turn to people so they can hear what I'm saying, not have my back to
in the
you.
microphone for the television.
Television.
Not news.
I'd like to know about full disclosure of the money that you're shuffling around from account to account. Why don't we see that? And I'd like to know if any of that is federal money for special needs that's being shuffled. Shaking the head won't do it, sorry.
I'll answer it. I'm coming to the mic. Talking about shuffling money. And my name is John Strout. I'm the chair of the policy committee. We have a policy that requires board approval for certain line item movements, and there were no movements of money without board approval or without some direction by the that was allowed within our policies.
And so what about the policy of moving federal money that belongs to special needs children? Was that ever moved?
So the answer is no.
I think for the amount of budget you're asking for, you ought to have a better microphone system so people can hear. Ain't that the truth, Carol?
Microphone for the television.
Other comments?
Well, they ought to be able to afford a microphone for the room.
Are there any other comments?
Arranged.
Just a point, are we going to approve the minutes from last year and get a treasurer's report?
That is a good question. That was not in the warning.
The treasurer's report is in the book, I believe, yes. The minutes.
Page 7.
Well, I know, but we just got these tonight, so.
Have been approved already.
The minutes have been approved
Correct.
tonight?
It's not part of the public meeting tonight. It's not, the only thing we did tonight is what's in the warning for tonight's meeting. Question?
It's just a comment. Actually, it is in the Article 6, to hear and act upon the reports.
I see.
And the reports are the treasurer's report and the minutes. So we really should act on them. The minutes are in your book, I think. Is the treasurer here?
I'd like to ask Bill to make a comment.
Yeah, just a comment on that, whether or not this public body chooses to accept or not accept the report has been given. And so you certainly could move to approve it and either vote that up or down. The actual minutes are a separate issue, though the minutes themselves will be approved by the people who sign them. So it looks like in this case it's the clerk and it will be the chair of the school board who sign it. Just as during town meetings, we don't actually accept the minutes from the prior town meeting. Those are signed by the moderator and the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to make a motion. If not, other comments, discussion on the board presentation? Last chance.
I
like
don't want to take anybody else's time, but I got interested in a couple of the things that, in the reports, that I think are worth expanding on. Two areas. If I may, I'll say two areas. That way I'll continue through the two areas. One is the health coverage. Understandably, it's not negotiated by this board, but handed to you by a state negotiating team. But you mentioned that there was first dollar coverage, and then next week, we're going to vote on some additional money in a fund that would take care of the deductibles. Is that correct? Did I hear you right?
No.
No. Can we have Elizabeth explain that, please?
Yes, please.
It's not additional. It's not additional.
Well, it's money that would cover the deductibles.
Provision.
In a future year. So basically, how the new statewide health insurance plan works is a certain percentage of the premiums for this high deductible plan are paid for by the employees, and then a certain percentage is paid for by the employer. It's an 80-20 percentage split. The employer pays more. So that's pretty easy as far as, figuring out what to budget for. You're basically looking at what your population of staffing is, what kind of plans they actually traditionally take, and calculating that 80-20 split between the two. The part about the deductible on these plans being high is that the employer also has to contribute a sizable HRA to cover a large portion of that deductible. One of the changes that the statewide agreement made is that now no longer will the employee have the first dollars of that deductible, the employer will have the first dollars, and only if they hit the end of that HRA will the employee have to contribute any dollars. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
So with that known, we were recommended by miscellaneous different organizations such as our auditing firm, such as people at the VSA, State of Vermont, to budget for 100% of usage on those HRAs, because we don't know whether people are going to use more, whether they're going to, it's also calendar year basis instead of fiscal year. We run on a fiscal year. I could have an illness in December, use all of my deductible, all employer paid, and then need surgery in February. Guess what? I hit it again in the same fiscal year, but only one calendar. It's 2 different calendar years, so the insurance has to pay it, right? The employer has to pay it. So that can happen. The likelihood of that happening is slim to none, especially on all of your group. You're kind of playing a little roulette trying to figure out who's going to, who's not going to, how many people will, how many people won't. So the recommendation is budget for 100%. But what we don't want to do, as Mark, I think, was talking about with a budget, we don't want to charge our taxpayers for 100%, a huge dollar amount of the what if, and then find out that we didn't really need it, and then have to try to give it back, right? That causes this kind of thing with your tax rates, with your budgets, and the like. So what instead we're saying with this the health insurance reserve account is because we budgeted 100% of health insurance costs this year, if we don't spend the dollars we budgeted in all those health insurance line items, instead of taking those dollars and either A, doing something else with them, or B, having to give them back in a surplus in the next year's tax budget, instead we set it aside into that health insurance reserve account, and it sits there for the year when we have a really bad year and we didn't budget enough. Because we don't want to continue budgeting 100% for this thing either. We want to start budgeting at, say, 80%, maybe based on our usage or history. We don't want to keep on charging the taxpayers for that and have it go up and down.
So the $200,000 maximum, if it doesn't get all used, if only 100,000 got used, that other 100,000 would stay there for next year,
Yep.
and we would only have to put in another 100,000.
Exactly. Yep.
Or 50%
That's
of
the
it.
design. Yep.
Okay. And we don't have any
There are.
option whatsoever to do anything else for our teachers other than this?
Not as far as health insurance is concerned. It's all mandated by this agreed upon agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My other question is is regarding the Addison School and the alternative education program there. It sounded to me like we had 18 to 20 students that are eligible or are being served, one or the other. I'm not sure whether that's what's being served or those are the students that are eligible. And that we are then going to make an agreement with Mount Abe and Middlebury, or Bristol and Middlebury, to take some of their students in. Will that affect the number of students that were counted for in this district? Will that increase the number and therefore lessen the burden on us? That's it.
Yeah, please.
So the 18 or so students are currently, that's the number between all three schools currently. So those are not correct. So and that's what we anticipate for next year. And then from there, we hope to be able to grow the program to increase other grades, offer the program for even younger students so that we can expand on that. But in the first year, we're just going to serve the students who are currently being served in the model over at CSAC and bring them onto our campus. And those that number that I referenced is all three districts combined.
Is that high school? Yes. Okay.
So, other questions? Anybody who hasn't spoken yet have a question? Please.
George Eisenhart. In regards to the repurposing Addison, have the other two schools that you're negotiating with, are they aware that the residents of Addison voted to keep the school elementary? I know the warning said to close the school as an elementary school. That means when we voted, we wanted to keep it at elementary school. Are they aware that there could be an issue? And do you have a contingency plan if something happens?
Are you asking if the other two school districts in the
Yes.
in the county are aware of the vote in
There
Addison?
could be an issue.
I'll answer. Hold on.
John?
John Strout. I understand your question totally, but I just don't think that any of us can sit here and say what they know. I'm sure they're aware, but I can't. There's no way that we can know. So.
Do you have a contingency plan?
No.
Very good.
Other questions? Last chance.
Hi, Mary Neffinger, Ferrisburg. So I'm going to poke the bear a little bit more. I've spoken with a teacher for who works under CSAC, and there have been times where the school has gone into lockdown, and they've received immediate wraparound services from CSAC. And now that they're going to be in Addison, that's goes from immediate services to a 20-minute drive. Is there anything that's been talked about to compensate for that, or are we hiring appropriate staff so that we wouldn't need any outside services?
I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about.
I think the question is, if I make just my understanding of your question is there the same level of service that currently exists with respect to the CSAC program in the event of a lockdown situation?
Correct.
Would that level of service carry over to the new program at Addison Central School Building?
The program that we're speaking about is currently housed at CSAC.
Under CSAC?
It is in the CSAC building.
Right.
So what are you talking about in terms of a lockdown? I'm not sure what you're speaking about.
If some of these students do something to make the teachers that are serving them feel unsafe and they have to go into lockdown,
Yep.
is there a plan for getting someone that can help them out to Addison in a similar time?
Sure, and the program is adequately staffed as is. So we can review the staffing plan with you if you'd like to see that, but there are a number of behavioral experts and others. It isn't just a few teachers along with the students. So there is a director, a special ed that's licensed in special ed, there are behavior specialists and so forth. So it's adequately staffed to accommodate the needs of those students in any situation, unsafe or otherwise.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Bill?
My question is not germane to Article 6, and thereby it should be ruled out of order by the moderator. But I want to thank you for doing this tonight.
Okay, you're out of order. But you're welcome. So, and thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to, if anybody wants to make it, to recess this meeting to the Tuesday, March 3rd town meeting day vote. Tom? Oh, certainly. Certainly may.
However it's written.
Tom has made a motion to accept the reports of the
Addison Northwest School District officers.
Addison Northwest School District officers as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting reports, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And would anyone like to make a motion to recess the meeting until Tuesday, March 3rd for the voting by Australian ballot?
So moved.
By Ken. Seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.